There you go. That's the clap. That
That was amazing.
was the
Alright.
clap that indicates that we've started recording.
Yeah.
Deep in episode 5.
Episode 5.
5, 4? 5, yes.
5.
Gab says 5. If
Yeah, right.
I pretty much follow what Gab says. If he says we're episode 5, we're in episode 5.
I mean, I'm just here for the ride, nothing
Yeah,
else.
literally.
Gab says 5.
That's he
I'm
runs.
down
He
for
runs
it.
the show. I'm just the face.
You're a
of,
legend, bro.
of face of the deep end. Welcome to the deep end, my friend. I'm
Thanks,
going
sir.
to introduce you because I feel like you're gonna downplay a lot of the stuff that you do.
Do you reckon? Yeah.
And I feel like I want to really emphasize like why I brought you on here,
yeah.
and also that anyone that I invite on this platform is someone that is not just a friend of mine, but lives their life in a way that I think is worth following.
Yeah.
And you do that. The way you live your life and the way you lead yourself and the way you lead others. And just the friendship. We've been friends for some time now.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
yeah, we'll
100%.
talk about
I
that.
think that would be good.
But you're a man of
It'll
many
be-
hats.
It'll be nice.
Yeah.
I think
And don't downplay
the
the-
same way that you said I'm gonna downplay it. I feel like you're on the even other end of the spectrum where you have mastered your craft. You've mastered what you do. And being able to say it without any hesitation is actually a gift that people just probably overlook aside and say, or maybe paint it in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. So I'll probably leave it to you to do your introduction.
I'll do
and,
my introduction
yeah,
of you.
and then we'll probably go on to you as well.
So you are a civil engineer.
Correct, sir.
If you know what a civil engineer is, it's no easy task at all. But not only that, so this is your day-to-day job, a
Yeah.
civil engineer. You are also my service pastor. So you are a pastor for one of our services, which are 5 p.m. service. And you lead people.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
lead people from all walks of life. And you do it so graciously. And just you have one of the things that separates you is that you would never ask someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself.
That's correct. Yeah,
And
that's the principle.
I've seen that time after time that like anything you ask of someone, you will do it without a moment of hesitation.
Yeah.
You're not big enough. You're not big enough to do the things that you ask of your people. You would do it without other click of finger. Like,
Yeah.
and I think the only reason why you don't do it anymore because now obviously your leadership has grown. So now you actually have a team.
I think like people like completely forget the what leads to get to that point
Yeah.
where you're no longer doing this stuff,
Yeah.
and you now have people who are stepping into the space. I think it has to be set in such a way that you lead the way first.
Yeah.
You show them by example.
Yeah.
That servanthood lifestyle. You become the first one to whoever wants to be greatest
Yeah.
has to be the servant of them all.
Yeah.
So I feel like for people to give you that stage or for people to give you that space, they have to first see something that you've
Yeah.
actually done. And I think when it comes to church, like I like to view it as servant, what's it called? Service leadership.
Yeah.
Because pastorship comes with a whole different explanation to
Yeah.
itself. But when it comes to that space of like church and 5 p.m.,
Yeah.
you would see that leadership would come into the people that are following you, the people who are around church. So
Yeah.
that's probably a small part of what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, everything else kind of flows from that. So yeah, likewise, as you said, like you definitely downplay yourself as well. But I remember meeting you the very first time you came into Melbourne, and this was, let me set the tone for you guys. So this guy walks into
I
church.
feel like now you're going to into it of what you really want.
Nah, this guy walks into church, and kid you not, you had about 4 or 5 people walking around with you, and you were leading all of them over there because this was the Sydney crew
Yeah.
back at that time. And what I just remember was the caption in people's like attention when you were getting introduced around, and how you held up yourself in a very new environment that you have never been. That was my pointer to say, okay, let me have a chat with this guy. Let me see how that goes. There are people that are easy to talk to and people that you'd be having a chat to, and they'll be like, yeah, But the moment you have a chat with you, it's like you're bouncing back and forth. Like, I think that's one of the most underrated things that people even like fail to consider
Yeah.
or to think about, where you just allow the conversation to go as you are in the present, in the moment.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I saw straight on when I had a chat with you. So that was back like, was it
2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2019 when I first moved down from Sydney
Yeah.
to Melbourne. But more than just that, I think I haven't even introduced you. Oh
here we
my
go.
gosh, we've just
Let's do
got.
it.
This is one of many conversations that we have. Like we have these conversations so often.
Yeah.
And what I love is that we're not just. This is not a one moment like a moment thing that we're just doing for the sake of the podcast. Like we have these conversations all the time that we're constantly encouraging each other and building, speaking life into each other. And this is just the first time that we happen to have lights, a mic in front of us, and cameras. But everyone, could you please welcome the one and only, the Zimbabwean prince, Nigel. I'm never going to try to pronounce your last name because I feel like I'm just going to butcher it.
Yeah, now for the guys who are out there, no, my Zimbabweans will know this, but it's Nigel Chikuramadara. That's how you say it. Yes,
Nigel Chikumadara.
Yeah, Chikuramadara.
There you go.
Nah. Thanks for having me, man.
It's good to have you,
good.
man. Thank you for
good.
taking time. And that's something I'm very conscious of, people's time. And I know you've taken time. You came straight from work. And as a civil engineer, I can only imagine what your day-to-day.
The day-to-day is, man, if we start this is going to be like, I don't know,
That's we have to do a whole different podcast.
Yeah, a whole
the life of a civil engineer.
Professions, like whatever they are, like you get to a point where you're in this bubble.
Yeah.
And that bubble, it's either you go to work, come back, to meet friends, one or twos.
Yeah.
But I try to break it down so much that when anyone asks me, what's your profession or what do I do? I try to be very concise and be like, yep, I build warehouses. And there's like, what does that look like? And then I meet one guy who's like, I build houses. And they're like, oh, what does this? So it just like zones it out, because the moment you say civil engineer, people think math and numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be a math geek. But to be honest, like, or it's the other side of things, which is, you gotta be very good at drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
I could not draw for any reason.
To save your life?
Nah, not even. If I've got a gun on my head, it's like, okay, you gotta draw something, like, nah. But you give me a ruler in something straight edges, then things start making sense.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah, I've been doing that for about 3 years now. Going into 3 years, and came here in 2017.
Yep.
And here is Australia-wise, Melbourne.
Yep.
So it's almost like seven years plus. Yeah. And if you think about it, that's like the same time as you would take to start your prep until you finish. Yeah. Like that's 7 years in my country anyways. So did 4 years here, finished, and then started working professionally.
Yeah.
And as well serving at church.
Yep.
That's been part of like the very first time I was here. That's the time that like literally my uncles and aunties overheard me play the Hillsong music, and they're like, all right, we've got a service in the city. What does that look like? Did not know. Walked into it, and there was just a lot of like the crew on stage. It felt like a concert for me. Yeah. So I was like recording the whole thing. Yeah. Like I think at one point I was on Facebook Live. Or something.
Live. It's so funny because you see people that still do that, like the Facebook, but it also kind of put things into perspective. I think when I see that, it reminds me of just what an honor and privilege to be part of our church. And sometimes I think we can take it for granted and grow complacent. But when you see new people come to our church and they're just in awe of whether it's the worship leaders, not like the worship or the church or the preaching, it almost reminds like we're part of something incredible. Yeah. And it's more than just music wise, but just that what God is doing in our house. That moments like this kind of puts things back into perspective for me. And reminds me, man, I'm part of something bigger than myself.
It reminds me so much because you're seeing this fresh new perspective of someone who's enjoying, because we're so used to it day in, day out,
Yeah.
Sunday in, Sunday out. But there's this verse which says, remember your first love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I see that person who's like deeply involved or deeply rooted or deeply immersed in God's love, I
Yeah.
try to go back to when I started as well, because sometimes you kind of lose that.
Yeah.
And it sort of like recenters you into a space where if I go back 7 years down the line when I had my camera on,
Yeah.
it was just to show everyone who's back home that there's something that I'm experiencing that other people have taken the time to
Yeah.
create. And I think that's some of the leadership that you would probably see on a place that is evidence,
Yeah.
where someone else is coming to enjoy the fruitful, hardful labor
Yeah.
of someone who has set the tone and
Yeah.
someone who has set the space. So yeah, I'm super keen to sort of like share those 2 cents around there.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, we'll see how we go. But how did you end up in your song? Like, yeah, look, what was...
Oh man, so I actually used to go to Planet Shaker City Church when I was in Melbourne here.
Okay.
But then when we moved to Sydney, there was no Planet Shaker. So we knew of Hillsong. We had all of the music, the worship, albums, all of that. And so we just, as a family, decided, okay, this is the church that we're going to go to. And so we started going to the Hills campus. And that's how I kind of started going to our church, Hillsong. But you're talking about leadership, and that's one of the things that we really want to hone into and talk about. We started a new segment called the Leaders Room.
Yeah.
And the heart behind it is to really speak leadership into the next generation, to the leaders today, and not just the leaders today, but the leaders that will shape the leaders of tomorrow. So it's more than just about the leaders, like equipping and speaking leadership and helping people see what true leadership is. And I think people have their own definition of leadership, but for us, like our definition of leadership is biblically based. Is the root of what leadership means to us is founded in the Bible and what the Bible has to say about it. And for us, leadership starts by serving people. It's serving people. It's not just telling people what to do. It's having a servant heart, and that's something that Jesus exemplified. But also, as you read the scriptures, that's something that's constantly emphasized, like serving one another, serving God, like this servanthood posture, this servanthood heart, which I think sometimes it can. I'm trying to find the word. It can go against what the world has to say about leadership. It can go against what culture has to say about leadership.
It's the reverse.
It's literally the opposite of it. Is saying, hey, like if I'm leading people, I serve these people. I serve them, and you do that so incredibly, and it's one of the reasons why, like, you're someone that I admire. You're a friend of mine, but you're also my leader in the context of of church, and it's this beautiful friendship, but it's also like still there's honor involved. And I think that's something that we don't always get to see, especially amongst guys that look like us, our age, where when it comes to leadership, it's all about I'm the boss of you, I tell you what to do. But seeing the way you lead others, you are constantly serving those people who are under your leadership, and it's why people are constantly drawn to you, and it's why people want to be under your leadership. Your leadership team is constantly growing and growing and growing, but that's because of the way you lead others. I said that earlier. You're someone, you would never tell someone to do something that you personally would not do yourself. So that's one of the big reasons why I brought you here.
No, that's good. Thanks for having me here as well. Like, I think I would like to even start off and say, whatever we're going to say here, like, it's just coming in from our own experiences that we have done. There's no like accreditation or putting anyone on a pedestal, but I'll try my best to say from my perspective and how I've seen things work and how I've seen things not working. And if I'm telling you I've seen things not working more than I've seen things work, just because of just the trial and error like methods, or just because sometimes you are told, oh, this is the best thing to do, and then you end up doing it, and then it's not even close to giving you the answer. So I like what you said when you're sort of like starting off to say you wouldn't ask anyone, or I wouldn't ask anyone to do anything unless I'm keen and ready to do it myself.
Yeah.
And if you look at the leadership on a like a very high level,
Yeah.
this is the serious stuff. This is the you gotta be zoned in. You gotta
Yeah.
be very stoic. I think stoic is a very good word for it.
Yeah.
Where people are saying you gotta be unshaken. You gotta show no fear, show nothing.
Yeah.
But if you look at a life of a servant, it doesn't say any of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a mere steward of what the master has given you.
Yep.
Yeah, so when I view what I do, it's coming from a perspective of, first of all, removing ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and replacing ownership with stewardship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
I
so
feel
good.
like if I do own something,
Yeah.
then I'm offended when something doesn't work.
Yep.
Then I'm offended if
Wow,
someone
that's
tries
awesome.
to take it away.
Yeah.
But if I am going to be stewarding it,
Yeah.
even if it's taken away from me, it ain't my money, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's God's money.
Yeah.
It ain't, they ain't my people. This
Yeah.
is God's people. So it just detaches you from the whole situation.
Yeah.
And puts God into that so that whatever happens, it's all to Him.
Yeah.
It doesn't get us rid of all the responsibilities
yeah.
that we have to do,
Yeah.
because there's this parable. I think everyone knows it. If you don't know it, you gotta go and
Check it out.
Yeah, where they're talking about the parable of the talents.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a responsibility that the king is giving to the people.
Yeah.
To actually take care of those investments. And if you do not take care of those investments, it says you at least have to put it in the bank so it can
Yeah.
get some interest. You're still taking care of making it grow. So I feel like even though you're a servant, you are being put at a position where you're supposed to be stewarding what
Yeah.
God has given you in different capacities.
Yeah.
You have got a different capacity to I have.
Yeah.
I've got a different capacity to what you have. And so is every other leader who's around.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of like the lifestyle that I've tried to put into place and try to follow in such a way that it removes all those pressures of being stoic or
Yeah.
being the person that you gotta. Still important,
Yeah.
but the base and the core root of it is, if I don't know, I'll be like, hey guys, I have no idea what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Let's work it out together. And then you'd actually see people opening up in such a way that's actually
Yeah.
would allow you to still lead them, but at the same time allow participation as well in there. But yeah, keen to sort of like hear from that perspective.
Absolutely. And I think even conversations around leadership historically has always been kind of, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it causes people to kind of drift away or disengage
Yeah.
immediately, because you often hear what I call discourse around leadership of this super intense or super, oh, you have to do this, you have to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning. If you don't do this, you're a failure and all this stuff. And so sometimes when you hear these conversations around leadership, it's so intense, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to generalize, but just some discourse I've heard and seen around leadership, has been so intense to the point where it's like, it causes people to not even engage in it. And I think leadership conversation doesn't have to be this intense thing. It could literally be in the studio of, two brothers who are just sharing their perspective and sharing things that they've learned. And this is really what my heart is when it comes to this segment over here, the leaders room, is to just use our experience and see, share the things that we've learned, share the things that hasn't, like you said, the things that have worked and hasn't worked, where people can learn from our experience.
Yeah.
It's always better to learn from someone's experience than to make that same mistake.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
really the heart behind it. And even going in terms of leadership, one of the big things that we're always talking about is leadership starts with you.
Yeah.
Before you can lead someone else, you actually have to be able to lead yourself.
Absolutely,
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So I think when we're talking about self-development, we'll end up in that topic irregardless. There's this guy called Jim Rohn. If you guys would probably have look on YouTube or anything, he's the biggest guy like that I know probably for now about self-development. It just goes on hard in terms of, if you can become a greater person, then everyone who's around you is going to become a greater person as well, just because of what you have set out to. But then you'd end up in this big predicament, or you end up in this big circle where there's stuff that they have done, or anyone who's successful has done,
Yeah.
or what a successful leader has done. Wake up in the 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
do the runs, you gotta do. Yes, you've got those attributes that are
Yeah.
almost seemingly as harsh, or almost seemingly as you gotta become this person.
Yeah.
But then, like, there's this sweet spot that I think I've gotten to realize in terms of when you're pursuing to become a good person, when you're pursuing to become a greater person, you embark on a journey that, as you are embarking on that journey, you are becoming the person that you want to become.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What I've seen on my end and what I've seen working is, if it doesn't come from the abundance of who I am,
Yeah.
then I can't pour out anything.
Wow.
If I'm not talking out from my experiences, I'm literally talking out from literally like nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where you get caught.
Yeah.
That's where you get, because when you're talking stuff that you do not understand, people can pick that up.
They'll quickly pick it up eventually.
Exactly.
Sooner or later, yeah.
And when they pick it up, now you have got a decision to choose.
Yeah.
Do you go on with the lie? Or do you admit to the people that you actually don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel if you do your homework in like you becoming the person that you want to become,
Yeah.
You avoid this situation where people look at you in a sense of like, do you actually know what you're doing?
Yeah.
For me, what that looks like practically, let's say we've got a night that I have to go to Connect, or we've got
Yeah.
a night, and for those who don't know, Connect is just a gathering of people
Yeah.
where we just come all together and pray, or sometimes we come, like our group will come out together and then we would probably worship at some point,
Yeah.
share Bible study in that space. So there is an opportunity for you to present leadership in a very different way.
Yeah.
In a way that allows you to decide what to do on the night, to decide what to hold up, any encouragement, or to decide who's going to speak, to
Yeah.
decide who's going to do. These are all leadership
Yeah.
things that require your attention. Now, when you do pour your time way before all this happens,
Yeah.
you prepare yourself in such a way that whatever comes in, you are able to pivot from there because you're well equipped and
Yeah.
you're well prepared. The other end of that is just probably showing up and saying things will happen as they happen,
Yeah.
which is a real place.
Yeah.
Absolutely real place. But at the same time, that is what I think from my end, like, distinguishes me from a very good leadership night
Yeah.
and a poor leadership night. Like,
Yeah.
there's that like clear distinction of what that looks like.
Yeah.
If it is prepped for, if it is not prepped for.
Yeah.
So I think, like, from a perspective of what it looks like to personally develop yourself first, I always tend to look into what is happening behind the closed doors when no one else sees.
Yeah. 100%.
The Bible comes in and says, go into your closed doors, like completely close your doors and
Yeah.
pray. There's a reason why you're not being asked to go like the Pharisees into the streets and pray out loud.
Yeah.
There's a certain attribute of yourself that comes out from that secret place.
Yeah.
Yeah. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High. You know,
Yeah.
that's the place where you get history with God.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you yourself, like, how do you see that, like, applying in your day to day before you walk out into, I'm sure, like, you've got these spaces where you're about to take shoots, you're about
Yeah.
to take videographies, you're about to take so much creative aspects of, like,
Yeah.
what you do. How are you prepping yourself for that?
I think, like, spiritually is first thing before when I wake up, because I have, like, my phone's right next to me, I've started doing this thing of just praying before I reach for my phone.
Yeah.
Because reaching my phone is like getting the day started, look at the
That's
messages,
real. Yeah,
emails, all
yeah,
this stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm like making a conscious decision to give God that first moment of my day.
Yeah.
And it's recognizing that God is my Lord and Savior,
Yeah.
my leader. Like, God is at the center of my day to day, making a decision like, hey, no, like, you actually need you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not just like you're not just part of my day. You are at the center of my day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. There's mornings where I just wake up like I don't even.
And you're on the go.
Yeah, I'm on the go, but it's
Yeah,
I'm learning like no, like God, you're actually at this. And as my world is very full on at the moment.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
my day can look like runs, meetings with different people.
Yeah, yeah.
Either like meetings and planning, whether it's for NAS run or whether it's for the deep end
Yeah.
or whether it's for photography and like planning shoots. It's so much components. Like my day is full on. Like it's, and I'm thankful for it. And sometimes I can find myself getting lost in doing things for God
Yeah.
rather than spending time with God.
Yeah.
Do you know
come
what
on.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
recognizing, hey, like God is thankful and his loves that I get to do all these things for him.
Yeah,
but
that's
he
good.
wants to spend
That's
time
good.
with me
Yeah.
more than you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes I think and recognizing that, like, I'm not too busy to spend time with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
That's a real place.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so recognizing like he's the source of my strength. And I think as you learn, as you get better in the things that you do and your craft, you get to a point where you can almost do it like, you know, seamlessly, like effortless. You know what I mean? And you can find yourself being less reliant on God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm finding myself slowly heading to that, and I'm having to check myself. Like,
Yeah.
no. Like,
Yeah.
I need God more than ever, Nigel. Do you know what I mean? Because now I have like more to lose. I have people who
Yeah.
are looking to me to lead them,
Yeah.
and the devil's not just gonna stand back and watch it all happen. You know what I mean?
Nah.
And so recognizing that it starts with God first. He's the source of
Yeah.
my strength. He's my peace. He is my guide. And seeking God, seeking the Holy Spirit. Okay,
Yeah.
what's on your heart, God, before I come with my shopping list of
Now, like, look, like, I completely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we started, we were talking about the servanthood lifestyle. And I think one of the things, I'm just going to be real, yeah?
Yeah.
One of the things that I felt I was overcompensating on
Yeah.
was becoming a servant and a servant and a servant and a servant and not realizing the times that I need to be with God.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's real.
Yeah, you get to this place in the Bible where there's Mary and Martha, and Jesus is in the, call it the dining, call it whatever you want,
Yeah.
and then he's talking to people and ministering to people.
Yeah.
And then one of the sisters is sitting down on the feet of Jesus, listening to what
Yeah.
Jesus is saying, and then the other sister is going around trying to prep the food.
Yeah.
And then she's getting completely not happy.
Worked up.
Yeah,
She's-
worked up. It's like,
she's
why
so
am I
mad.
running all over through this space and then you're just chilling over there
Yeah.
and sitting on the feet of Jesus and I'm the one who's like doing all the pots. I find myself in that situation
Yeah.
so many times. Not because we shouldn't help her or we
Yeah.
should serve her, but there are moments where intimacy with God is more important.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Like, I think it was one of these conversations I was having with my pastor.
Yeah.
And we were chatting about how when you're in a service and just going all around, you're so busy trying to run out and like,
Yeah.
oh, touch this, the Bible's here, do we
Yeah.
have things here? But when you really stop and look around and see what God is doing,
Yeah.
you're most likely to be able to actually get in more than you would in the whole night.
Yeah.
Just because God is now able to actually show you what's happening in the
Yeah.
room. He's able to now show you, okay, there's that, okay, there's this. And I feel like even in my personal life,
Yeah.
I'll be running from one meeting to the other, doing this, probably the same would be in that same space, even for you. Like, you've
Yeah.
got this. So to have that moment where you can just stop and look around. Yeah. I will even like put it into this segue
Yeah.
where one of the brothers who was a monk wrote this book in terms of intimacy with Jesus.
Yeah.
And he was explaining how you can be so close to God to a perspective that you don't even need to kneel down. Because for me, I was like, okay, if I'm going to have a chat with God, I'm going to go down on my knees. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm here. But then he was saying you can lead a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And he has this statement in his book, and he says, I am in more touch with God when I am doing my dishes rather than when I am kneeling down.
Right. Because of the intimacy is not just limited to a specific time or moment. It's just regardless of what you're doing, you have this. Wow.
So imagine having that in leadership,
Yeah.
where you are so in touch with God and someone is screaming in your face.
Yeah.
You are so in touch with God and other things are happening around. That is when you'll be hearing people asking the question, how are you still remaining so calm?
Yeah.
How are you still holding up your line? What is going? There has to be something that's different because you're living into this protected lifestyle.
Yeah.
You're living into this intimacy with God, and decisions will probably become way much more easier now.
Yeah.
Because you're in touch with who God is in that very exact same moment.
Yeah.
And you're consulting him every single time
Yeah.
before you make important decisions. I know some of the times when probably we all cannot be monks, absolutely, but
I mean, you're close. You're probably the closest one to all of us.
Look, I'm the type where, okay, I need to have a very serious decision right now. I'm like, guys, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then I go to the bathroom and then I'm like, God, okay, you got to speak into my life. You got to speak. But just imagine having that as your target.
Yeah.
To say, I just want to be so in touch with God during my leadership times to be able to just have that connection with Him
Yeah.
and that intimacy with Him. And yeah, I think that's one of the attributes that will actually preserve you as a leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I think you said something about it's all about what happens behind the scene when no one's looking. I think
Yeah.
we can easily put on a front and we can get so caught up in what we do in the public eye, what people see.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
think true leadership starts behind closed doors.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
When no one's looking. I think
Yeah.
that's where your characters develop. That's where your integrity is developed. This is where I think leaders are born behind the scenes. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
when we see the leaders that are in, I call it Gab just said aside. I love that. When we see leaders who are doing incredible things and come in the limelight, they've done years of practice of self-development
Yeah.
and they've practiced, discipline and just showing up in and out, just doing the right things
Yeah.
and working on the things that are not sexy. When it comes to things like character, integrity,
That's the hard stuff. Yeah.
I think I always look at it this way. I have this saying, and it's not my personal saying, but I've heard
Yeah.
it before. Your gifting and talents will take you in the room, but
Yeah.
it's your character and integrity that will keep you
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that room.
Yeah.
Because yes, you can we're all gifted and we all have our gifts, and yes, that can take us into
That will
many
make
rooms.
room for you. Yeah.
That,
yeah.
They'll make the room and create opportunities. But if you don't have the character and the
Yeah.
integrity to back it,
You'll be
you won't
bullied out
last
there.
in that room.
you'll
In
be
fact, you will struggle to go into other rooms because it comes down to, okay, what's your reputation? You've
Yeah.
now created a reputation for yourself. And so that's something I've always been, that's something I've been working so hard on because I have the gifting, I have the talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's my integrity and it's my character
Yeah.
that will go before me. Long
Yeah.
after I'm gone,
Yeah.
it's my character and my integrity that will keep me,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I think one of the things that people would think, okay, when you're working with your character, when you're working with your integrity, you have to be by yourself.
Yeah.
But I come against that aspect because that's not the way that Jesus lived.
Yeah.
You know what he did? He was like, he had his 3 core people
Yeah.
that he would go away with. He would
Yeah.
leave all the other disciples
Yeah.
and he would go with those 3 core disciples and then they would do a life that all these other disciples
Yeah.
are not experiencing together.
Yeah.
They would go and pray together in the mountain. Yeah?
Yeah.
But, okay, before I even go further, I would say, if you want to prophesy, you got to play with the prophets.
Yeah.
If you want to become a footballer, you gotta play with the footballers.
Yes.
Yeah. Your company, good company ruins good morals. Like
Yeah.
a bad company ruins good morals.
Yeah.
It's who you are with and taking on that journey
Yeah.
to actually get to the space where iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get sharpened. But then the thing that I like the most about Jesus then is after that inner core people,
Yeah.
he then took a step further to walk out by himself.
Yeah.
Because there's a point where people would fail you, not because they do not want to be with you.
Yeah.
But because what you carry is different to what they carry, they are all carrying completely different things.
Yeah.
They have got all different talents. So when Jesus walks out and leaves them and then goes to pray on by himself, he's giving us an example of the extra mile that you'd have to go to become who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that place is the place that you have to be by yourself.
100%.
That's the place that you're just you and God.
Yeah.
But before we get to that place, I just wanted to highlight the importance of this middle section.
Yeah.
Where you've got iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
The brother who's there with you.
Yep.
The brother who's like, okay, you don't have this, I'm gonna be there for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. There's this time that I was at the airport, and we go to the airport, and then just because we don't have a visa here, they won't allow us to actually get to hire out cars. And my game plan was I'll get to the airport, hire a car, drive myself home, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I get to the airport, and they're like, look, you don't have a visa here, so we can't give you our cars.
Yeah.
And this was 12 o'clock, midnight completely. And then I had to call a brother. I'm like, Ashley, you got to run here.
Yeah.
Man, I'm stuck. I can't get home. Like, this is what it looks like. And this guy woke up and drove all the way to come to the airport to come and pick me up.
Yeah.
You know? So this is some of the things that when you're going onto the journey of becoming who you are, you have this intermediate spots where you can actually stand and stand shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
What do they say? A cord of three cannot be broken easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But yeah, I know Gab was saying our time over here.
Even just before I wrap up, like I think you've nailed it on the head when you were talking about iron sharpens iron, because that's in order to sharpen iron, your iron, you need to be just as sharp as the other person. Do you know what I mean? And so like the people you have around you is so pivotal and will actually kind of take you to. Let me try and find the word for it. Your company will determine where you go in life based on who they are, the character and all this stuff. You can be a good-hearted person, but still, if you flock with the wrong crowd, it's only a matter of time before you kind of, you find yourself becoming more like them. So I think
show me your friends,
and I'll show you your future. And so even before I wrap up, I wanted to honor you because I'm in a place in my life now where, there's evidence of things that I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of say, Kuti, you're doing amazing things. But you've been one of these guys in my life. Even when I wasn't walking with God, even when I wasn't leading, you still honored and you still honored that leadership on my life. And that's something that I will never forget. You know what I mean? And I think that is why you are one of my closest friends.
Yeah.
Because you are someone who sees potential in people even when it's not visible. And that's what separates you from the pack, because you don't just wait before it becomes a reality. You speak life into it and you treat it as if it's already visible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you did that for me, and you do it for so many people. And so I just wanted to honor you and say that I am a better man today because of you, because of your leadership, because of our friendship.
Yeah.
Every time we talk, I always walk out, leave a little bit more encouraged. And just more ready to just be who God called me to be. So I just wanted to thank you for your leadership, for your friendship, and just the life that you live, man. It's remarkable as a young man. It encourages me to know that,
I guess if there's one thing that people can take away from what I've learned is just the servanthood lifestyle.
Yep.
Yeah.
You do that
whenever
incredibly
you
well.
don't see it, it's not yours to see. You know, as you were saying, like it's not yours. You do your part. It says one comes in and waters, one comes in and pours in. But definitely part two is coming up, Gab. But yeah, like that's the life that I think when you portray, it gives you a bit more understanding of just removing you out of from the situation. Because if there's me, then there's jealousy. If there's me, then there's all this, which kind of comes in and mushes the reason why God has even given you the gift to even start off with.
100%.
So I just want to say a big thank you. You're
you.
doing amazing work,
Appreciate
man. Honestly, we wouldn't be sitting here, honestly, if this man and his crew, of course, hasn't created this space. And it's just a testament to how much you're reaching and how much you're putting emphasis into people getting to understand who God is.
Yeah.
And through the lens of your experience, through the lens of now our experiences.
Yeah.
And everyone else is going to come in the deep end.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I thank you about. And
Thank
keep
you.
doing it, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
No more than big love.
Shout out to our team. But we'll see you guys next time. This is The Deep End, and I'm Kuti, and this is my friend Nigel. I will see you next time.
One and out.